And that, kids, is why you should never trust us lawbacks with your credit chip, I said, finishing up my usual spiel about interspecies financial etiquette. The gaggle of wide-eyed alien youngsters stared at me, a mix of awe and confusion on their faces. Well, what I assumed was confusion. It's hard to tell with some species, especially when they have more eyes than appendages. One of the braver ones, a centaurian with a particularly impressive set of antennae, raised a tentacle. But Mr. Human, sir, why did the humans even join the Galactic Confederation if everyone keeps trying to scam them? I couldn't help but chuckle. If only they knew the half of it. Well, little ones, gather round and let me tell you a tale. A tale of how humanity stumbled its way into galactic society and somehow managed to not only survive but thrive, despite being the universe's favorite punching bag. The kids huddled closer, their various appendages tucked in tight. I cleared my throat and began the story, my voice taking on the tone of a grizzled spacer who'd seen it all.
It all started about a century ago, Earth time. Humanity had just figured out how to break the light speed barrier, and boy, were we feeling cocky. We thought we were hot stuff, ready to take on the galaxy. Little did we know, the galaxy was more than ready to take us down a peg or 12.
I paused for dramatic effect, enjoying the rapt attention of my audience. Our first contact wasn't with the Galactic Confederation. Oh no, that would have been too easy. Instead, we ran smack dab into the Vraxian Empire, the galaxy's premier used starship salesman and con artists extraordinaire. A collective gasp rose from the group. Even the youngest knew the reputation of the Vraxians. Now, picture this: humanity's first interstellar diplomatic mission, led by our best and brightest, pulls up to the Vraxian welcome station in our shiny new faster-than-light ship. We were so proud of that bucket of bolts. You wouldn't believe it. The Vraxians took one look at our ride and probably had to excuse themselves to laugh their tentacles off. I mimed wiping a tear from my eye, playing up the comedy. So there we were, all puffed up and ready to announce humanity's grand entrance onto the galactic stage. And what do the Vraxians do? They sell us a timeshare. The kids looked confused. Right, alien concepts. A timeshare, kiddos, is like. Imagine if someone sold you a vacation home, but you could only use it for 1 week a year, and you had to share it with 100 other species who all shed different colors of slime. That's a timeshare. Understanding dawned on their faces, followed quickly by horrified amusement. But it gets better, I continued, warming to my tale. The timeshare wasn't just any old asteroid or moon. Oh no, the Vraxians, in their infinite wisdom, sold us a timeshare on a gas giant. A gas giant. Can you imagine the look on our diplomats' faces when they tried to land and found out their new vacation spot didn't have a solid surface? The kids were rolling now, their various forms of laughter filling the air. I waited for them to settle down before continuing. Needless to say, humanity's first foray into galactic real estate didn't go so well. But did we give up? Did we turn tail and run back to Earth with our tails between our legs? Well, technically yes, we did exactly that. But then we came back. I stood up, pacing around the group as I continued my tale. You see, kids, if there's one thing you need to know about humans, it's that we're stubborn. Ridiculously, illogically, mind-bogglingly stubborn. We're like that piece of alien gum that gets stuck to the bottom of your shoe. No matter how hard you try to scrape us off, we just keep coming back.
So we licked our wounds, did some research, the kind of thing we probably should have done before flying off into the great unknown, and decided to try again. This time we were ready. We knew about the Galactic Confederation, we'd studied up on alien cultures. And we'd even learned how to say no. Thank you. I don't want to buy your moon in 17 different languages.
I paused, looking each of the kids in their various eyes. And you know what happened when we showed up at the Galactic Confederation's doorstep, all prepared and proper-like? The Centaurian's antennae twitched in anticipation. What happened, Mr. Human? I grinned. They laughed us right out of the solar system. The kids' faces fell. I could almost hear their little alien hearts breaking for past humanity's plight. Oh, don't look so glum, I reassured them. Remember, we're the stubborn gum, remember? We didn't let a little thing like universal ridicule stop us. No, sir, we just kept coming back. Again, and again, and again.
I started ticking off on my fingers. We tried joining as a protectorate of the Arcturian collective. Turns out they only wanted us as exotic pets. We attempted to bribe our way in with our planet's weight in chocolate, apparently. It's a deadly poison to half the Confederation species. We even tried to impress them with our military might. Let's just say our biggest battleship made a nice addition to the Confederation president's keychain collection.
The kids were enraptured, their eyes or equivalent sensory organs wide with a mix of horror and admiration. But here's the kicker, kids. You know what finally got us in? What finally made the Galactic Confederation sit up and take notice of little old humanity? They shook their heads, practically vibrating with curiosity. I leaned in close, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We out-bureaucrated them. A chorus of confused chirps, whistles, and gurgle. Met my pronouncement. You heard me right, I said, straightening up. We out-bureaucrated the masters of red tape themselves. You see, after about the 50th rejection, some bright spark in the human delegation got an idea. They started going through the Confederation Charter with a fine-toothed comb, and let me tell you, when a document's been accumulating clauses and sub-clauses for a few million years, there are a lot of nooks and crannies to explore. I started pacing again, really getting into the story now. And lo and behold, buried deep in the 573rd appendix, subsection Gamma, paragraph 12, there was a little clause about admission criteria. Turns out, if a species applies for membership often enough, they automatically qualify for a probationary period. The kids looked skeptical. I couldn't blame them.
I know, it sounds too good to be true. But remember, this is a bureaucracy we're talking about. They live for this kind of obscure rule. So, armed with this knowledge, humanity marched right back up to the Confederation's door and said, "Hey, guess what? You have to let us in now. It's in the rules."
I paused for effect. And you know what? They did. The collective gasp from my audience was deeply satisfying. Yep. Just like that, humanity became a probationary member of the Galactic Confederation. The looks on the other species' faces priceless. It was like watching a gorgon trying to eat spaghetti, all confusion and tentacles everywhere. I sat back down, crossing my legs. Of course, that was just the beginning of our troubles. See, the Confederation figured they'd give us enough rope to hang ourselves with. They assigned us all the jobs no one else wanted, stuck us with the worst trade deals, even tried to saddle us with that gas giant timeshare again. The Centaurian kids' antennae drooped. But that's not fair. Why were they so mean to humans? I reached out and gently booped one of the drooping antennae. Life's not fair, kiddo, especially not in the big bad galaxy. But here's the thing about humans, we thrive on that kind of challenge. Where other species saw dead-end jobs, we saw opportunities. Those bad trade deals, we found loopholes. And that gas giant timeshare? Well, let's just say Jupiter's new ring system is a popular tourist attraction these days. The kids perked up at that, chittering excitedly among themselves. But the real kicker, I continued, came about 20 years into our probationary period. That's when the Zexoblaxians showed up.
I could see recognition in some of the older kids' eyes. The Zexoblaxians were the stuff of galactic legend, and not the good kind.
Now, the Zexoblaxians were bad news. Real bad news. Think of the biggest, meanest bully in your school, then give them an armada of planet-cracking warships and a serious attitude problem. That was the Zexoblaxians. I leaned forward, my voice dropping low. They rolled into Confederation space like they owned the place, demanding tribute and threatening to turn entire solar systems into cosmic dust if they didn't get their way. The Confederation was in a panic. None of their fancy weapons or clever diplomacy seemed to work against these guys. The kids were hanging on my every word now, their various appendages clutched tight in suspense. And then, in the middle of a particularly tense council meeting, with the Zexoblaxian fleet bearing down on the Confederation capital, somebody remembered the humans. I grinned, remembering the stories I'd heard about that day. Picture this: the Grand Council chamber, filled with the greatest minds of 1,000 species, all arguing and panicking. And in walks the human ambassador, looking like he just rolled out of bed after a 3-day bender. Some of the kids giggled at the mental image. The council turns to him and says, "Human, your species is good at annoying people. Go annoy the Zexoblaxians and you know what that mad lad did." He said, "Hold my beer." All confused looks. "Right, Earth idioms. It's a human expression," I explained. "It means, watch this, I'm about to do something incredibly stupid and/or awesome. Understanding dawned on their faces, followed by anticipation. So, while the rest of the Confederation cowered, humanity stepped up to the plate. We sent a delegation to meet with the Zixor-Blaxians. But this wasn't just any delegation. Oh no, we sent our secret weapons.
I paused for dramatic effect. We sent telemarketers.
The blank looks told me I'd lost them again. I sighed. Okay, imagine the most persistent, annoying salesperson you've ever met. Now imagine an entire ship full of them, all trained in the art of never taking no for an answer, armed with an endless supply of useless products and a commission-based pay structure. Horror dawned on the kids' faces as they began to understand. That's right, I nodded sagely. We subjected the terrifying Zixor-Blaxian war fleet to the most dreaded weapon in human history, unsolicited sales calls. I stood up again, really getting into the story now. For 3 straight days, we bombarded them with offers for extended warranties on their planet crackers. We tried to sell them timeshares on that same gas giant. We even offered them a great deal on solar system insurance, so you never know when a random black hole might pop up. Better to be covered. The kids were in stitches now, rolling around and making their various species equivalent of laughter.
By the end of the 3rd day, the Zixor-Blaxian Supreme Commander himself sent a message to the Confederation. You know what it said? Make it stop. Please, for the love of all that is holy, make it stop. We'll do anything, just call off the humans.
I spread my arms wide. And just like that, the greatest threat the Confederation had ever faced was neutralized. Not with weapons, not with diplomacy, but with humanity's greatest strength, our ability to be really, really annoying when we put our minds to it. The kids cheered, their various appendages waving in celebration. After that, well, let's just say humanity's stock in the Confederation went way up. Suddenly, all those dead-end jobs we'd been assigned didn't seem so bad. After all, who else would you want manning the complaint department or dealing with particularly prickly diplomatic situations? I sat back down, my tail winding to a close. And that, little ones, is how humanity went from being the galaxy's favorite punching bag to its go-to problem solvers. Sure, we might not be the strongest, or the smartest, or the most technologically advanced species out there, but we're persistent, we're adaptable, and by the stars, we know how to take a punch and keep on swinging. The Centaurian kids' antennae were practically vibrating with excitement. Wow, Mr. Human. So that's why humans are in charge of galactic customer service now.
I chuckled. You got it, kiddo. Turns out, after dealing with the Zixor-Blaxians, handling angry customers from across the galaxy is a piece of cake. Another kid, a blobby thing with more eyes than I could count, gurgled questioningly. My universal translator buzzed to life. But Mr. Human, if humans are so good at solving problems, why does everyone still try to scam them? Ah, out of the mouths of babes. Or gelatinous masses in this case. Well, you see, that's the beautiful irony of it all. The rest of the galaxy still underestimates us. They look at us and see the species that fell for the gas giant timeshare, the ones who can barely tell us lawbacks from a Yithian. And you know what? We let them think that.
The kids looked confused again. I grinned conspiratorially. Because here's the secret. Kiddos, sometimes it's better to be underestimated. While the rest of the galaxy is busy laughing at us, we're quietly running the show from behind the scenes. Why do you think the Confederation hasn't had a major crisis in decades? It's because there's always a human there, ready to handle it before it becomes a problem. I leaned in close, my voice dropping to a whisper. And between you and me, half the time we're the ones setting up those scams in the first place. Got to keep our skills sharp somehow, right? The kid's eyes widened in a mix of shock and admiration. I quickly backpedaled. But don't you go spreading that around, you hear? As far as anyone's concerned, we humans are still just the lovable goofs who keep the galactic customer service lines running. I stood up, stretching my back. Well, that's enough storytelling for one day. You kids better scamper off before your parents start wondering if the silly human has turned you all into exotic pets. As the kids began to disperse, chattering excitedly among themselves, the Centaurian lingered behind. Mr. Human, it asked, antennae twitching nervously.
Yes. Little one.
Do you think I could work in galactic customer service someday? Like the humans do? I smiled, kneeling down to the Centaurian's level. Kid, let me tell you something. The galaxy's a big, weird, wonderful place. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that anyone can do anything they set their mind to. Even if that something is dealing with angry Gorgons who are upset that their spaghetti keeps trying to escape. The Centaurian's antennae perked up, and it let out a happy chirp before scurrying off to join its friends. As I watched the kids leave, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. Another day, another batch of wide-eyed youngsters filled with tales of human daring-do. It was a tough job, but somebody had to do it. After all, how else were we going to make sure the next generation was ready to take on the galaxy? I straightened my galactic customer service uniform and headed back to my post. Another day in the life of humanity's finest, keeping the gears of intergalactic society well-oiled and only mildly on fire.
As I made my way through the sprawling Galactic Confederation administrative complex, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. The hallways were a riot of alien architecture, a mishmash of styles that somehow worked together in a chaotic harmony. Kind of like humanity's role in the Confederation, when you think about it.
I passed by the Department of Interspecies Cuisine, still trying to make Terran Brussels sprouts palatable to non-humans, and the Bureau of Quantum Parking Enforcement. Trust me, you do not want to get a ticket from those guys. Just another day in the office. If your office happened to be a miniature city housing representatives from every corner of the known universe. As I approached my desk in the heart of galactic customer service, I heard the familiar cacophony of 1,000 different languages, all complaining at once. Ah, the sweet symphony of my people. I'd barely sat down when my comm unit lit up like a Betelgeusean fire dancer. Great. Looked like it was going to be one of those days.
Galactic Customer Service. This is Greg. How may I optimize your existence today? I chirped, using the standard greeting that had been focus grouped to death by a committee of 100 different species. The response was a series of guttural clicks and whistles that made my universal translator smoke slightly. Ah, a Zix tick caller. Always a joy.
I see, I said, not seeing at all. And how exactly did your quantum toaster end up in the fourth dimension? Aha, you tried to toast a black hole. Sir, I'm fairly certain that voids the warranty. As I attempted to explain the finer points of trans-dimensional appliance care to the irate Zix tick, I couldn't help but reflect on the strange turns my life had taken. If you'd told me back in college that I'd one day be the galaxy's premier expert in quantum toaster repair, I'd have laughed in your face. Then again, if you'd told me aliens existed, I probably would have laughed even harder. But here I was, troubleshooting appliances that defied the laws of physics as we knew them, all while trying to maintain a cheerful demeanor. It was a far cry from the heroic space adventures I'd dreamed of as a kid, but in its own way, it was just as important. After all, someone had to keep the fabric of galactic society from unraveling, one customer complaint at a time. I finally managed to talk the Zix tick through the process of retrieving their toaster from the fourth dimension. It involved a lot of quantum string theory and, oddly enough, a rubber duck, just in time for my next call to come in. Galactic Customer Service, this is Greg. How may I? Human the bellow nearly blew out my earpiece. I demand satisfaction. Ah, a Toxtarian. Always a pleasure. Of course, sir, I said, keeping my voice level. How can I assist you today? What followed was a 20-minute tirade about the poor quality of Toxtarian battle axes lately, how they just don't make them like they used to, and how this was clearly all humanity's fault, because reasons. As I patiently listened to the Toxtarians' grievances, my mind wandered back to how humanity had ended up in this position. It was funny, really. We'd dreamed of zipping around the stars in sleek spaceships, having grand adventures, and maybe the occasional space battle. Instead, here we were, manning the complaint desks and keeping the Galactic Confederation running smoothly from behind the scenes.
But you know what? It worked. Somehow, our unique blend of stubbornness, adaptability, and ability to deal with utter absurdity on a daily basis made us perfect for this job. We were the universal translators of the galaxy, not just in language, but in culture and expectations.
Take this Toxtarian, for example. To most species, his bellowing would seem terrifying and aggressive. But to a human who'd worked retail during Black Friday sales, this was practically a polite conversation. I understand your frustration, "Sir," I said when the Toxtarian finally paused for breath. "Have you considered that perhaps the issue isn't with the battle axes themselves, but with the quantum fluctuations in your local space-time? I can transfer you to our Department of Chronological Weaponry if you'd like a more in-depth analysis." There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end of the line. Then, to my surprise, the Toxtarian let out a booming laugh. "By the cosmic anvil, human. You might be onto something there. Very well, transfer me to these chrono-weapon experts of yours." And, thanks. As I processed the transfer, I allowed myself a small smile. Another crisis averted, another happy customer. It wasn't glamorous work, but somebody had to do it. The rest of my shift passed in a blur of increasingly bizarre customer complaints. I helped a Glesian figure out why their gravity generator was only working on Tuesdays, talked to Mfari out of filing a lawsuit against the concept of time itself, and spent a solid hour explaining to a very confused Earthling that, no, we couldn't actually bend the laws of physics just because they'd seen it in a sci-fi movie. By the time I clocked out, my brain felt like it had been put through a quantum blender. But as I made my way out of the complex, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. This was what humanity did best. We took the chaos of the universe, and somehow, against all odds, made it work. As I stepped out into the artificial sunlight of the space station we called home these days, I took a moment to appreciate the view. The vast expanse of space stretched out before me, dotted with the twinkling lights of 1,000 different worlds. Each of those lights represented countless beings going about their daily lives, secure in the knowledge that if something went wrong, they could always call Galactic Customer Service.
And we'd be there, ready to help. Because that's what humans do.
I was so lost in my grandiose thoughts that I almost didn't notice the commotion near the public teleport hub. A crowd had gathered, and in the center, I could see the distinctive shimmering form of a luminarian, a species made entirely of living light.
As I got closer, I could hear the luminarian's distressed flickering. "My universal translator kicked in, please. I don't understand. I just wanted to go home, and now I'm here, and everything is wrong."
The crowd of various aliens were all talking at once, a cacophony of well-meaning but utterly useless advice. I sighed. Looked like my day wasn't over just yet. "Excuse me, pardon me. Human coming through," I said, gently pushing my way through the crowd. "Galactic Customer Service. How can I help?" The luminarian's glow pulsed with relief. "Oh, thank the eternal flame. Human, you must assist me. I was attempting to teleport home to Luminara Prime, but something went terribly wrong. I rematerialized here, and now I think I'm emitting in the wrong spectrum." I looked closer, and sure enough, the luminarian's usual soft golden glow had a distinct greenish tint to it. Well, that was a new one. "Okay, let's not panic," I said, falling back on my customer service training. "First things first, are you in any pain or discomfort?" The luminarian flickered a negative. "No, I feel fine. Just wrong, and very, very far from home." I nodded sympathetically. "All right, that's good. Now, can you walk me through exactly what happened when you used the teleporter?"
As the luminarian recounted their experience, I listened carefully, my mind racing through possible explanations. Teleporter malfunction, quantum entanglement gone wrong, or maybe...
"Wait a second," I interrupted. "You said you inputted the coordinates for Luminara Prime yourself." The luminarian pulsed an affirmative. "And you're absolutely sure you entered them correctly?" There was a moment of hesitation, then a sheepish flicker. "Well, I was in a bit of a rush. It's possible I might have transposed a digit or two."
I fought the urge to face palm. Classic user error. Right, well, mystery solved then. You didn't end up on Luminara Prime. If I had to guess, based on your current. Hugh, I'd say you're probably vibrating at the frequency of Verdania. I.
The luminarian's glow intensified with embarrassment. "Oh, eternal flame preserve me. I'm so sorry for causing all this trouble."
I waved off the apology. "No trouble at all. These things happen. Now, let's get you sorted out and on your way home, shall we?" It took a bit of doing and a quick call to the Department of Spectral Realignment, but we eventually got the luminarian back to their proper frequency and safely teleported home. As the crowd dispersed, more than a few aliens patted me on the back, chirping or whistling their appreciation. I was about to head home myself when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find myself face to face. Face to midsection, they were rather tall, with a Quilxian diplomat. "Most impressive, human," the Quilxian said, their voice a melodious trill. I observed how efficiently you handled that situation. "Tell me, is this a common occurrence in your line of work?"
I chuckled. "Oh, you have no idea. This was actually pretty tame compared to some of the stuff we deal with on a daily basis." The Quilxian's head fronds quivered with interest. "Fascinating. You know, there's been some talk in the diplomatic corps about expanding the human role in the Confederation. Perhaps it's time we considered." But whatever the Quilxian was about to suggest was cut off by a sudden, ear-splitting alarm. Red lights began flashing throughout the station, and a computerized voice boomed over the intercom. "Attention all beings. This is not E-drill. Repeat, this is not E-drill. A Class X anomaly has been detected in Sector 7G. All non-essential personnel, please proceed calmly to your nearest designated safe zone." The Quilxian's head fronds went rigid with fear. A Class X anomaly. But that's impossible. The last one nearly tore a hole in the fabric of space-time itself. I felt a familiar mix of dread and excitement bubbling up inside me. A Class X anomaly was bad news, sure, but it was also the kind of universe-threatening crisis that humans seem to have a knack for solving. "Sorry," I said to the Quilxian, already starting to jog towards the center of the commotion. "Duty calls. Rain check on that diplomatic talk." As I raced through the rapidly emptying corridors of the station, my mind was already spinning through possible scenarios. E-Class X anomaly could be anything from a sudden outbreak of time loops to a full-on incursion from another dimension. Whatever it was, I had a feeling that the Galactic Customer Service Department was about to earn its keep. I burst into the station's main control room to find it in utter chaos. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were running around, shouting in 100 different languages. In the center of it all stood Admiral Zix, the Confederation's Chief of Operations, his tentacles twisted into knots of stress. "Oh, thank the stars," a human Zix said as he spotted me. "We need your unique problem-solving skills. The anomaly is growing exponentially, and our best scientists are baffled." I cracked my knuckles, a grin spreading across my face despite the gravity of the situation. "All right, Admiral, hit me with it. What exactly are we dealing with here?" The Admiral gestured to the main view screen, which showed a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to be eating away at the very fabric of space. "We're not entirely sure, but it seems to be some sort of reality dysfunction. It's as if the laws of physics themselves are breaking down in that sector." I studied the screen, my mind racing. "Have we tried communicating with it?" Zixtral's tentacles writhed in confusion. "Communicate? With a spatial anomaly? That's preposterous." I shrugged. "Maybe, but we humans have a saying when all you have is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail, and right now communication is our best hammer. Patch me through." The Admiral looked like he wanted to argue, but one of the things the Confederation had learned about humans was that when we got that look in our eyes, it was best to just go along with it. He nodded to one of his subordinates, who began frantically working at a console. "You'll live in 3, 2, 1. I cleared my throat and spoke in my best customer service voice. "Greetings, unknown spatial anomaly. This is Greg from Galactic Customer Service. How may we assist you today?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to everyone's shock, the swirling vortex on the screen seemed to pause. A deep, otherworldly voice boomed through the speakers. "Customer. Service." I grinned. Now we were getting somewhere. "That's right. We couldn't help but notice you seem to be causing some disturbance in our sector. Is there perhaps a complaint you'd like to file? Or maybe you're having trouble with your reality settings?" There was another pause, longer this time. When the voice spoke again, it sounded almost confused. I, the devourer of realities. The entropy at the end of all things. I do not complain." "Well, there's a first time for everything," I said cheerfully. "And between you and me, you sound like you could use a good vent. Why don't you tell me what's really bothering you?" What followed was quite possibly the strangest customer service call in the history of the universe. The being that called itself the devourer of realities turned out to be a cosmic entity that had existed since the dawn of time. It had been consuming realities for eons, driven by an insatiable hunger it didn't understand. But lately it had been feeling unfulfilled. Empty, despite the countless universes it had devoured. It had come to our reality hoping to find something different, something that could finally satisfy its cosmic appetite. As I listened to the entity's tale of existential crisis, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy. Here was a being of unimaginable power, and at its core it was just lonely. "Have you ever considered," I said carefully, "that maybe what you're really hungry for isn't more realities to devour, but connection, meaning, purpose?" The entity was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer, almost vulnerable. I have not. What is this connection you speak of?" And so, drawing on every self-help book and philosophy course I'd ever encountered, I found myself giving relationship advice to a reality-devouring cosmic entity. I talked about the importance of building relationships, of finding joy in creation rather than destruction, of the fulfillment that comes from being part of something larger than oneself. To my amazement, and the slack-jawed disbelief of everyone in the control room, the entity listened. The swirling vortex on the screen gradually began to shrink, its chaotic energies calming.
I think I understand," the entity said finally. "Perhaps I have been going about this all wrong. Perhaps instead of devouring realities I should join them, connect them."
I nodded encouragingly. That sounds like a great idea. In fact, I think the Galactic Confederation would be very interested in discussing potential cooperation. We're always looking for new ways to improve interdimensional communication. Admiral Zixtral's tentacles were practically tied in knots at this point, but he managed to nod in agreement. Yes, of course, we would be most interested in such a discussion. The entity's voice rumbled with something that sounded suspiciously like excitement. "I would." "Like that. Thank you, Greg from Galactic Customer Service. You have given me much to consider." And just like that, the anomaly disappeared. The view screen showed nothing but the normal starfield, as if the reality-threatening vortex had never been there at all. The control room erupted into cheers and a cacophony of alien celebration sounds. I found myself at the center of it all, being patted on the back and various other appendages by a multitude of grateful aliens. Admiral Zixtral slithered up to me, his tentacles still slightly knotted. I don't quite know what to say, human. You've saved us all from certain doom by giving relationship advice to a cosmic horror." I shrugged, grinning. "Just another day at Galactic Customer Service. Though I might need to put in for some overtime." The Admiral's color shifted in what I recognized as the Zixtralian equivalent of a chuckle. "I think we can arrange that. In fact, I believe a commendation is in order. And perhaps a promotion." Before I could respond, alarms started blaring again. But this time, instead of panic, there was an air of excitement in the control room.
"A young Vexillian ensign called out, sir. We're receiving a transmission from the entity."
Admiral Zixtral's eye stalks swiveled towards the main screen. "Put it through."
The screen flickered to life, showing not the chaotic vortex from before, but a serene, swirling nebula of soft colors. The entity's voice, now considerably less booming and more cordial, filled the room.
"Greetings, Galactic Confederation. I have given much thought to our conversation. I wish to propose an alliance." The control room erupted into excited chatter. An alliance with a reality-spanning cosmic entity. The diplomatic possibilities were endless. Admiral Zixtral turned to me, his tentacles quivering with barely contained glee. "Human, I believe your expertise will be required for these negotiations. Are you prepared to take on this responsibility?" I straightened my slightly rumpled Galactic Customer Service uniform and nodded. "Always happy to help, Admiral. Though I might need a crash course in cosmic diplomacy." And just like that, I found myself thrust into the role of humanity's representative in negotiating an alliance with a being that, not an hour ago, had been threatening to devour our entire reality. Just another day in the life of a human in the Galactic Confederation. Over the next few weeks, I spent more time talking to the entity, who had decided to call itself Nexus after I explained the concept of names, than I did sleeping. We discussed everything from the nature of reality to the best way to organize a multidimensional filing system. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and utterly surreal. But as strange as it all was, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was what humanity brought to the galactic table. Not the most advanced technology, not the strongest military, but an unparalleled ability to roll with the punches and find common ground with, well, anything.
It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. There was the incident where Nexus accidentally created a time loop in the Andromeda Galaxy. We sorted it out eventually, though I'm pretty sure there's a planet there where it's perpetually Tuesday now. And don't even get me started on the paperwork involved in establishing diplomatic relations with a non-corporeal, pan-dimensional entity.
But slowly, surely, we made progress. Nexus learned to channel its reality-altering powers into more constructive pursuits, like stabilizing volatile star systems and creating shortcuts through particularly troublesome areas of space. In return, we introduced Nexus to the concept of hobbies. It turns out cosmic entities are surprisingly good at knitting and the joys of interspecies cultural exchange.
As the negotiations neared their conclusion, I found myself in yet another meeting with Admiral Zex Trull and the rest of the Confederation's High Command.
I must say, human, the Admiral began, his tentacles forming what I'd learned, was a gesture of deep respect. You've exceeded all our expectations. Thanks to your efforts, we're on the brink of a new era of cosmic cooperation. I felt a flush of pride, quickly followed by a twinge of embarrassment. Thank you, sir. But really, I was just doing my job. Any human would have done the same. The Admiral's eye stalks swiveled in what I recognized as their version of a knowing smile. Perhaps. But that's precisely why we believe it's time for a change in the Confederation's structure. I blinked, confused. Sir, we've been discussing it for some time now, he continued, and recent events have only confirmed our thoughts. The Galactic Confederation needs a new division, one specifically tasked with handling the unusual situations that seem to crop up with increasing frequency. I had a sneaking suspicion where this was going, but I kept my mouth shut. We're calling it the Department of Improbable Solutions, the Admiral said, his color shifting to a pleased purple. And we want you, Greg, from Galactic Customer Service, to be its first director. For once in my life, I was speechless. Me, the director of a whole department. It was a far cry from my days of explaining quantum toasters and soothing irate Toxdarians. But as I looked around the room, at the faces and various other sensory organs of the beings I'd come to consider friends and colleagues, I realized something. This was why humanity had joined the stars. Not for glory or power, but for moments like these. Moments where we could make a real difference in the vastness of the cosmos.
I straightened up and gave the Admiral my best salute. We'd finally agreed on a gesture that wouldn't be offensive to any member species. It would be my honor, sir.
And so began a new chapter, not just for me, but for all of humanity. The Department of Improbable Solutions quickly gained a reputation as the go-to guys for when things got weird, which, in a galaxy as vast and varied as ours, was surprisingly often. We mediated disputes between time-traveling factions, found peaceful solutions to wars that had been raging for millennia, and even managed to negotiate a truce in the infamous quantum cafeteria dispute, don't ask. It involves quantum entanglement and some very strong opinions about proper sandwich construction. But more than that, we became a symbol of what humanity could bring to the galactic community. Our adaptability, our creativity, our stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible, these became our greatest strengths. As I sit here now, years later, looking out at the swirling cosmic beauty of Nexus, who has become something of a mascot for our department, I can't help but marvel at the journey that brought us here, from a species barely able to leave its own planet to key players in a galactic civilization, from falling for the galaxy's worst timeshare scam to brokering peace with cosmic entities. It's been a wild ride full of challenges and triumphs, laughter and tears and several other emotional responses that don't really translate to human physiology. But through it all, we've stayed true to what makes us human: our curiosity, our compassion, and our unyielding determination to make the best of any situation. As I prepare for another day of improbable problem-solving, I'm reminded of something my old high school guidance counselor once told me: Greg, you have a knack for getting into trouble, but an even better knack for getting out of it. At the time, I thought she was just trying to put a positive spin on my less-than-stellar academic record. Now, I realize she was predicting the future role of all humanity. So here's to the troubleshooters, the problem-solvers, the ones who look at the impossible and say, "Hold my beer, here's to humanity," the customer service representatives of the galaxy.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a call coming in from the 13th dimension. Apparently they're having some issues with their reality settings, and who better to help them than a human with a knack for improbable solutions.
After all, in a universe full of wonders and terrors, sometimes all you need is a friendly voice saying, "Galactic customer service, how may I help you today?"